Stop mindlessly scrolling. Pause everything you're doing right now and hear me. I'm about to share something that can fundamentally change the direction of your life, but only on one condition: if you're truly ready to receive it. Most people are not ready. Most will close this video within the next 30 seconds, because what I'm about to share requires looking in the mirror and admitting something more frightening than death itself. The truth is that you are not living your own life, but someone else's. Right now, in this very second, you're sitting there wondering whether I'm talking specifically about you. You're asking yourself whether this message is meant for you. Let's make it clear. If you're breathing, if your heart is beating, if you've ever felt an inner pull, a quiet, nagging feeling telling you that you're capable of more, then yes, I am speaking directly to you. And what I'm about to share is not another uplifting speech designed to temporarily ease the discomfort of living an ordinary life. This is a declaration of war against the version of you that settles for less than your own greatness. For the first 30 years of my life, I believed success was meant for others. I believed some people were born with a special gift that guaranteed greatness, while the rest of us were left to watch from the sidelines, applauding their achievements and secretly resenting our own limitations. I was deeply mistaken, fatally mistaken. And if you think the same way, you're repeating the same catastrophic error that almost cost me everything I could have become. The decision I'm talking about is not what you expect. It's not choosing a career, a partner, or a place to live. Those are merely external expressions of the real choice. The decision that rewrites destiny is far deeper, far scarier, and far more powerful than any external step you will ever take. It is the decision to stop being the victim of your own story and become the author of your legend. Understand this: every day, from the moment you wake up until the second your head hits the pillow, you make thousands of micro decisions. They either move you closer to the person you're meant to become, or keep you confined within the limits of who you believe you are. But there is one meta decision above all others, one choice that determines whether all those micro decisions will form a life filled with meaning or a life filled with regret. It is the decision to take full, absolute, unconditional responsibility for your life. Before you roll your eyes and decide you've heard this before, stop. You haven't heard this before. What you've heard are softened, comfortable pieces of advice that sound nice but change nothing. What I'm talking about is far more radical, far more uncomfortable, and far more transformative than anything you've encountered. I'm talking about taking responsibility not only for your actions, but for your thoughts, emotions, reactions, interpretations, and even for circumstances that seem completely beyond your control. Most people live life as passengers of their own existence. They blame their parents for their psychological wounds. They blame the education system for their lack of knowledge. They blame the economy for their financial struggles. They blame genetics for their health. They blame society for the lack of opportunities. For decades, they collect evidence explaining why their life turned out the way it did, building an impenetrable dossier of their own victimhood. And you know what? They're right. They can flawlessly prove they've become victims of circumstances. But being right in your victimhood is the most expensive correctness you will ever experience. When I was 25, I was broke, deeply depressed, and genuinely believed life was happening to me, not for me. I had a master's degree from a prestigious university, but my job barely covered the bills. I was in a relationship that slowly destroyed me, but I stayed out of fear of being alone. I lived in a city I hated, convincing myself I couldn't afford to move. I existed in a body that felt foreign because I had neglected my health for years. And despite all that, I had a perfect explanation for every limitation in my life. My parents didn't teach me how to handle money, so debt was inevitable. The economy was down, of course it was hard to find a good job. Mental illness ran in the family, naturally I struggled with depression. My partner was emotionally closed, no wonder the relationship suffered. The cost of living was high, obviously I couldn't live where I wanted. My metabolism was slow, of course I had extra weight. Every excuse was logical, reasonable, and completely bulletproof. And that was exactly what made them so dangerous. The most sophisticated form of self-sabotage is not open self-destruction, but rational self-limitation. It's the ability to build a beautiful, logical explanation for why you cannot live the life you want. It's the collection of evidence of your own stuckness and using it as justification to change nothing. It's being so right about the reasons for your failures that you never have to take the frightening step toward real change. But then, something happened that changed everything. I met a person who looked at my perfectly constructed arguments about limitations and said a phrase that shattered my worldview. He said, "You're right about all of this, and you will stay exactly where you are until freedom becomes more important than being right." Those words hit me like a freight train. I realized I had become addicted to my victim story. I was so focused on proving why I couldn't succeed that I stopped trying to succeed at all. That night, I made a decision that rewrote my destiny. Not a decision about actions, a decision about who to be. I decided that regardless of my past, my current circumstances, or future obstacles, I would take full responsibility for my life. Not partial, full. It wasn't a one-time choice. It was a decision I had to reaffirm every day, sometimes every hour, sometimes every minute, because the pull of the victim position is incredibly strong. Friends, give me 5 seconds of your attention. Subscribe to the channel Power of the New Me if you haven't yet. Leave a like and write 3 sevens in the comments if you want to support our channel. Your likes and comments truly help this video grow. Thank you for your support. Your brain is programmed to protect you from pain, and taking full responsibility for your life is, at first, one of the most painful decisions you can make. It's the rejection of the comfort of blame. It's the rejection of the familiar warmth of resentment. It's the rejection of the illusion of safety that low expectations provide. When you truly take responsibility for your life, you can no longer blame the past for your current circumstances. You can acknowledge that difficult things happen to you, but you no longer use them as eternal excuses for eternal limitations. You can acknowledge your flaws, but not use them as a lifelong permission slip to avoid effort. You can acknowledge a difficult hand, but you don't fold your cards before the game is over. The moment I stopped asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and started asking, "What is this happening for?" everything changed. When I stopped looking for someone to blame and started looking for lessons, my reality shifted. When I stopped waiting for circumstances to change and started changing my attitude to them, I discovered a strength within myself I didn't even know existed. But here's what people rarely say about taking responsibility for your life. It's not a one-time event. It's not something you do once and then coast on autopilot for the rest of your journey. It is a daily discipline, a decision made moment by moment, a constant reaffirmation of your intention to create your own story instead of letting others rewrite it for you. Every morning, when you open your eyes, you face a choice. You can enter the day as someone things simply happen to, or as someone who initiates events. You can interpret difficulties as proof of your limitations, or you can see them as opportunities to expand your capabilities. You can treat failures as signs of inadequacy, or you can see them as feedback helping you adjust your strategy. The quality of your life is directly tied to the quality of the questions you ask yourself. Most people ask destructive questions. They ask, "Why me?" instead of, "How can I use this?" They think, "What if I fail?" instead of, "What if I succeed beyond my wildest expectations?" They ask, "Who's to blame?" instead of, "What can I learn from this?" They say, "Why is life so hard?" instead of, "How can I become stronger?" When you change the questions, you change your focus. When your focus changes, your feelings change. When your feelings change, your actions change. When your actions change, your results change. When your results change, your life changes. It's both simple and incredibly difficult. But here's the paradox many struggle to accept. The more responsibility you take for your life, the more freedom you experience. The clearer you understand that everything in your life is created by you, the more power you have to create it anew. The deeper you accept your problems, the more control you gain over the solutions. The more honestly you acknowledge your role in shaping your current reality, the greater your influence over your future reality. Most people think freedom is the absence of obligations, but it's the opposite. True freedom is born from accepting such a depth of responsibility for your life that external circumstances stop controlling your inner state. True freedom appears when you master your mind so deeply that other people's opinions lose their power over your self-worth. True freedom comes from developing a strong inner foundation, when you no longer need the world to be different in order to be happy. I remember vividly the moment this idea shifted from intellectual understanding to embodied awareness. I was sitting in my car after losing a job I believed was essential to my life. My first reaction was anger at the injustice, listing all the grievances and gathering arguments for why it wasn't my fault. But then I noticed I was creating yet another victim story, and I made a different choice. Instead of looking for someone to blame, I started looking for reasons to be grateful. Instead of focusing on losses, I focused on potential gains. Instead of seeing failure, I saw preparation for something greater. And that was the moment everything began to change. 6 months later, I launched my own business. A year later, I was earning more than ever as an employee. 2 years later, I fully controlled my time, income, and lifestyle. 5 years later, I became financially free and lived a life my former self couldn't even imagine. But the external achievements weren't the main transformation. The real transformation happened inside. I completely changed my relationship with difficulty, uncertainty, and challenge. I'm not sharing this to impress you. I'm sharing it to convey a simple truth. The same transformation is available to you right now, in this moment, regardless of where you are or what you're facing. The decision that changed my destiny is the same decision that can change yours. The power that transformed my life is the same power that can transform yours. The principles that elevated my life are the same principles that can elevate yours. But this decision must be made not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, not when circumstances improve, not when you have more confidence, money, support, or clarity. Right now, in the moment you're watching this, you must decide that you are no longer willing to be the victim of your own story and choose to become the hero of your path. This decision will scare you, and that fear is the sign you're on the right path. Every great transformation in human history was preceded by fear. Fear is not the enemy. Fear is the compass pointing to your greatest growth. Fear is the internal navigation system telling you that you're standing at the threshold between who you were and who you're meant to become. Once you make this decision, your brain will start offering reasons why now is not the time, why you're not ready, why you need more information, resources, or certainty. It will remind you of past attempts and previous failures. It will present evidence that this time will be no different. Your brain will do everything possible to keep you safe, small, and stagnant, and you will thank it for its concern. And then you will step forward anyway, because you'll understand that the discomfort of growth is temporary, but the pain of regret is eternal. You'll realize that the fear of failure is nothing compared to the fear of never trying. You'll recognize that the risk of disappointment is tiny compared to the guarantee of mediocrity. Here's what I wish I had heard 20 years ago. Your current circumstances are not the finale. Your past results are not the limit of your potential. Your present limitations are not permanent. The story you've been telling yourself about what's possible in your life is just a story, and any story can be rewritten. But rewriting it requires more than positive thinking or naive hope. It requires developing what I call responsibility, the ability to choose your response to any situation regardless of its content. It requires the ability to create meaning, to find empowering interpretations even in discouraging circumstances. It requires strengthening the muscle of will, the ability to act according to your values even when your emotions pull you in the opposite direction. But when you decide to take full responsibility for your life, you reclaim that power. You stop being a thermometer that passively reflects the temperature of the environment and become a thermostat that sets it. You stop being a leaf carried by the wind of circumstances and become the wind that moves other leaves.